Greetings from Washington, D.C. This is Peter Thomas, the General Counsel of NAAOP. As Congress prepares to return from its two-week congressional recess, we wanted to remind you and inform you of what occurred in March. In the early part of the month, as you well know, the O&P Policy Forum was held, and kudos to AOPA for putting on a wonderful policy forum this year. Many of the other O&P organizations contributed and participated in that, including NAAOP. And over 100 members of the O&P community advocated on Capitol Hill for two major provisions, trying to get them included in the omnibus spending bill that ultimately wound up passing on March 23rd. The two provisions included implementation of BIPA Section 427, which links Medicare payment of custom orthoses and prostheses and links them with the qualifications of the practitioner, and the minimal self-adjustment definition, which defines off-the-shelf orthotics for purposes of exposure to competitive bidding. Both of these issues have been long-standing priorities of NAAOP and the rest of the O&P community, and we were working hard to try to make sure that those provisions were included in any legislation that passed Congress, and namely the omnibus spending bill. That bill passed on the 23rd of March. It's a $1.3 trillion spending bill that funds the rest of the fiscal year for the federal government through October 1st, or through September 30th, I should say. Unfortunately, very few, if any, healthcare provisions were included in that legislation. Once the ACA stabilization legislation was not able to be agreed upon and there was no consensus on including that, many of the other Medicare health provisions fell off of that legislative vehicle as well. Ultimately, we weren't able to get those provisions included in the bill. But I will tell you that in talking with congressional staff and in interacting with the Hill on a routine basis, there's a tremendous amount of awareness of these provisions and very, very little opposition. And so we're going to continue to push forward along with all of the O&P partners to make sure that these provisions finally get implemented by Congress and by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Next, we wanted to make sure that you were well aware of an occurrence 3 weeks ago where CMS decided to establish a reimbursement level for the code K0903, which is a new code that is very similar to the A5513 code. If you recall, back in August, CMS, through its contractors, announced that they would no longer cover scanned images of diabetic foot orthoses, which may be produced by a computer-assisted manufacturer, in the same manner as molded-to-patient model foot orthoses. Ultimately, CMS wound up taking comments. The NAAOP, along with its alliance partners, AOPA, the Amputee Coalition, and even the American Podiatric Medical Association, all contributed and commented to CMS and made sure they understood that ultimately the change in a manufacturing technique does not necessarily mean there's a change in the end product. And so we advocated strongly that they not only code the orthoses that are produced through scanning technology in the same manner, but that they reimburse it in the same way as the existing technology. Ultimately, they wound up splitting the code, but they did not make a decision on the reimbursement level. I'm pleased to say that, and many people know this already, that coding decision does accompany a pricing decision where they decided to reimburse both codes at the same exact amount. And the rationale was that the end product was largely the same and that the manufacturing techniques might be different, but ultimately the end product is a foot orthoses for a diabetic patient. That's a huge victory. That's something that's very important, not necessarily on the A5513 code alone, but think about the 20, 25, even 30 orthotic codes that contain the same or similar language about molded to patient model orthoses, and how the new technologies with respect to scanning and computer-assisted manufacture and how this decision bodes for those codes. it bodes very well. And if the decision was made differently, it would have been a much bigger problem. So we're very pleased with that decision. We're pleased that CMS recognized the very vocal points of view and positions of our community, and we're looking forward to working with CMS on some of these other orthotic issues in the future. Finally, let me just say that NAAOP received a number of outstanding applications for the 2018 inaugural Summer Fellowship that it is hosting this summer. It's a Washington, D.C. based fellowship for a person from or in the community, the O&P community, who uses a custom orthoses or prostheses, who wants to learn more and understand O&P policy and advocacy. We received some great candidates. We're reviewing those. The selection committee is reviewing those as we speak, and a decision will be made by the end of April as to the selectee for that fellowship opportunity. Thank you very much.